welcome Joe and Graham to the Sales Sounding Board. Would you please introduce yourselves and say a bit about Wiseup, please?
Yeah. Let's give you a bit of background about us. I'm Joe Woods. I'm 25 from Manchester, and I co-founded Wiseup with my father Graham, who is also on the podcast, last year. Before that, I worked as a project manager in a couple of telecommunications companies for 3 or 4 years, and before that, I was a graduate of history at the University of Sheffield.
Thank you. Now, Graham.
Okay, my turn. Well, I'm older than Joe, obviously, but I've been working since I was 16. I've done 24 years at Barclays and 12 years in industry, negotiating outsourcing contracts for the last 15, 20 years. So I do a lot of outsourcing negotiations across the world. And yeah, myself and Joe have talked quite regularly about mentoring and how we could bring it to more people. And in my job, I do a lot of mentoring just on the day job. And this was an opportunity with Wiseup.
Yeah, so to explain what we're doing, Wiseup is a new online mentoring platform for careers and business. And you can find it at wiseupnetworks.com. So Wiseup Networks was founded by me, Joe Wood, and my dad, Graham Wood. We founded it. We had this idea for about a year and a half ago. It's something we talked about now and then because we had quite a strong professional network around us. And when I was coming out of university, like I said, and going into my first career, and then rising through that company. Fortunately, I did have people to talk to in obviously Graham's network, and Graham himself as the primary mentor of myself. It was nice to chat to people about what I was doing, how do I get to the next level, checking in with people quite regularly in quite a casual but professional manner. And what I soon realised later on towards the end of my corporate life, which is very short compared to most people, but was that they were mentors. That's what they were to me. They were mentors, a support network, an impartial third-party support network that I was able to kind of link up with key parts of my life and key decisions and make them a lot easier to make and a lot easier to make correctly. And so we sat down and thought, how do we create a marketplace online where you can book top professionals, top entrepreneurs for bespoke one-to-one advice on whatever your issue, goal, challenge is at that point in time. And we came, and that's what really excited us, is that on-demand style of professional advice. And so we started designing the platform early 2019 to make it really slick, user-friendly, modern, so that people could view the profile of a professional or an entrepreneur, feel that they could help them, and then within 2-3 clicks, you've got a call booked with them the next week. And it's that's what got us going. And so we spent most last year doing that, getting the user experience right, getting the costings right. And then we launched in November time in 2019. And towards the end of that design process, we found the Prince's Trust. So I vaguely knew about the Prince's Trust before that. Obviously, Graham knew a bit more, and it was one of our friends kind of said, "Oh, they do a enterprise program for young people trying to start a business." And so I went along to that, and I pitched the idea of what we were doing, and it had some nice parallels with the Prince's Trust, of course, because they offer mentoring support too. And they decided to, endorse us and allow us to launch as a business with the Prince's Trust on the back of their enterprise program. So they assigned me a mentor, and we are trying to stay quite close to them in everything we do where we can. And so that was really good. And we want to do more work with them going forward. A funny story about our launch, though. I mean, we actually launched from my laptop while we were in Portugal. And we were in Portugal because we had some tickets to the Web Summit. And the Web Summit is one of the largest technology conferences in the world, and there's about 70,000 people there in Lisbon, in Portugal, all tech companies. And so we went there with the view of going live, ideally before we got on the plane, but that didn't happen, of course. This thing,
Yes.
we ended up sat there in this huge exhibition hall. I think it was Acon was in one corner giving a talk on Bitcoin, which was very bizarre to see. And we sat there and we were getting these emails through from our web designers saying, "Oh, it's live." And so we kind of jumped up and down, shook hands, and then packed up our laptop and immediately started walking around this conference, networking with these tech companies to try and find partners. And it was quite a surreal conversation because we'd go up to them as father son and go, we've just launched our business. Give some background. Are you interested in being a partner? And they go, "Oh, when did you launch?" And we go, "Oh, about 25 minutes ago over there." And they always got a laugh out of people, and so it was a very interesting launch for us. But yeah, and since then we've been getting the platform right. We've been recruiting mentors onto the site. And we've hit 130 plus mentors now on the website. And so we're really now getting into the mentee side of things, finding people who need business support, finding people who need career support, and linking them up with mentors to have a chat and choose from one of our many virtual mentoring services that they can do on the platform.
No, that's fine. Obviously, I've got some background as a mentor myself. Most mentors are a solo activity. They're an individual offering their service. And the reality is one size doesn't fit all. And that's the part of the challenge. And my understanding is Wiseup is a sort of a niche. You are the first major site to actually bring together a large number of mentors to one place. That's not been done before, in my understanding.
Yeah, it's true. I think what we wanted to do, and again, we're doing it in steps and stages, but we want to cover so many different professions and skill sets that, hopefully anyone can go on that site, whether from a career or business mentoring, and speak to someone in that sector or that industry or that has that experience. And that's where we want to get to. And we're doing it in stages, obviously, as Joe says, 130 odd mentors at the moment. But a big driver here is we want to open the door to anyone over 18, to be honest, to be able to select the person who they feel either fits their aspirations, their career, has the experience. And that's really what we're driving at.
Yes, I think because my understanding, universities, my daughters have gone through, that's not quite the function of a university. I mean, we have to be 50% of all youngsters go through university now. That may grow up in percentages or stay around that. But it's not the function generally of a university to find a mentor. They may have a lecturer, a professor they prefer, etc. But that's not their main function. A mentor is very different remit from what someone as a youngster. I mean, Joe, you've been through university. Did you find it easy to find mentors in university?
Not really, no. And that's where this idea really finds its roots, is that university, I genuinely didn't know that the university did offer mentors, alumni or not. I never came into contact with that. Perhaps I didn't try hard enough to find out, but it wasn't front and center. I don't think it was very, very well organized in the fact that, it was seen as how I viewed mentoring at that stage is a bit of a box ticking exercise where it's, we should be giving them a mentor, and that's fine. But, who is that person? Has the mentee chosen that person? Often not. It's usually assigned, blind assignment. And that's because, frankly, there's not a huge choice, and it's great and amazing of people who give their time up to be mentors in universities or organizations. That's excellent, and when you do find the right person, that's so invaluable. But there is that lack of choice, I felt, and the same in the corporate world. We, in the companies I worked at, we'd often get assigned a mentor who's in the same company. but often a different department or just someone senior, really. But my experience with those mentors, I mean, I had two fairly poor mentors who didn't really get the feeling they cared about what I was, worried about at the time, what I was going through, or what I was trying to achieve, because I think it was kind of forced on them to be a mentor. It wasn't really their choice. It wasn't their passion. They had a busy corporate day-to-day life, and they didn't want to give up an hour for me, and it was a bit of a chore rescheduling all the time. So that's where this came from, is that experience. It would be lovely to have these people who are engaged and want to do this all in the same place for you to choose yourself. And it's that element of choice which really sets this apart from the way mentoring is usually done.
One thing in addition to that is it's not an age thing really, because I'm 52, I don't mind saying it, but put me into a room to negotiate an outsourcing deal globally, I'm fine. But this is my first time setting up a business, and it's with my son as well, which is great. But I need some help as well, and there's people who've actually stepped out of the mentoring scheme, the people we've been talking to, and they're giving me advice. So I'm learning myself. So it doesn't need to be just that people come from university. It could be people wanting to change their career or making a step change to a new role or new job. And for me, for instance, I'm learning certain skill sets which I thought I knew, but actually no. When you're looking at setting up a business, it's a different dynamic, and I'm learning myself as I go along. So it's not even an age-centric situation. It is different.
Yes, and I think you're right. Post-COVID-19, we're going to be in a new world of change. There are going to be people who will change their roles. They'll need to learn new skills, new understanding, gain knowledge, because we are in a huge melting pot. And ironically, nobody can guess where this one's going to go. But I think we're engaging in technology has enhanced certain things. I spoke to my daughter yesterday, and her organisation, which is a major electrical and services supplier, has now brought a whole category in of home worker. And her partner now have been assigned to be home workers. Post-COVID, they were in a huge, great office block. Gone, changed just like that.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I think the world is changing, and I think it'll be the same again. I mean, in terms of remote working, I've always preferred it personally. I think as soon as I had the chance to remote work in my career, I did. I took it straight away, and I preferred it just because I always like to have a reason why I am somewhere. If I go to an office and I don't feel that waking up that morning and getting changed into a suit and getting in my car and driving half an hour, if I don't feel like that was actually any point to that, I can't feel motivated to do it every day. So I always had a problem with that. But saying that, once after we've started Wiseup, I mean, we are seeing the sort of both sides of the coin, where, because we're a very small team with the same mission here, it is actually quite refreshing sometimes to be in the same room and have that kind of energy in one place. So I understand why, some people will be feeling uncomfortable now as they're forced to work at home. And that's a fair point. But I think for roles and teams that don't necessarily need that energy in the same place, that companies will be more susceptible to working from home. And that's really at the heart of our platform as well. I mean, the mentoring we offer is mostly online, and it always will be, because therefore, if you're in Edinburgh, it doesn't matter if your mentor's in Bournemouth, for example. And eventually, if your mentor's in the UK, it doesn't matter if you're in Australia. We don't want there to be boundaries, because the right person doesn't necessarily live down the road from you. That's how networking works. And so that's always going to be at the heart of what we do. However, saying that, when we can, we will be doing great face-to-face events and training, because things like that, it does benefit from being in the same room. You need that energy and that engagement. But, we are strong advocates of remote working, and we think it works very well in a mentoring context.
Well, look, I'm biased. It's nice to see my son. So I've got a slightly different take on it. Sometimes it is nice to be in the same room as my son. So, but I've been used to remote working for 20 years to a certain extent because it's global. Obviously, you can't be in Australia and India and the UK with the virtual team. So I've seen it work very well, but it has to be structured. And it has to be, the roles and responsibilities need to be clear, and there needs to be a benefit if you decide to go and see the meeting, just as Joe says. So remote working is not a new thing. It's just that it's never been on this scale. And I think that's the important thing because, I'm talking to other companies now as part of my day job. They are changing the way they're looking at certain aspects. And I think it's a big change, but the fundamentals of remote working are already there. They just need to be streamlined, made for a mass capability. And then, of course, that training, that coaching. And I must admit, when I started working more remotely, I needed some people to lean on about how best to make use of those conference calls, because Zoom wasn't really used at that time. So conference calls, fixed agendas and flexibility, and to get that knowledge into the actually outputs of the calls. So it's very important.
Yes, and I think online is certainly the way forward. I mean, I have a personal case in mind. I have a young gentleman I'm working with and have done for a few months now, and his life is spent between Singapore and the UK. Because we do it online, it's no real difference. Sometimes I see a hotel room, sometimes I see his flat, sometimes it's somewhere else. It's very flexible, and I think the platform, I understand, will work quite well and give that flexibility because it will all be online. Yes, it's lovely to have some face-to-face and some events to create energy and network, but I think for somebody who is seeking support from a mentor, they're not really bothered whether they're in Abu Dhabi or they're in London. It's pretty much irrelevant. They're looking for the right person for them.
Yeah, absolutely. It casts the net wider. It means your chances of finding a person with relevant experience has increased massively. If you're not just looking, for example, us in Manchester, we're limited to people who live there, and that's what we're trying to take out of the equation, because it shouldn't be a factor that prohibits people.
Yes, I mean, you've said you've now got 130 mentors listed. So for somebody now looking for a mentor, they've got a one-click site. They can run through the categories, search, and I believe you offer a sort of meet-up conversation virtually.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So they can. We've built the site so you can filter it with whatever keywords or industries or level experience you want to refine that search to find the right person. And when you do find that right person, all mentors offer a free, we call it a virtual coffee, where it's 15, 20-minute chat with that mentor, introduce yourself, and understand if they can help you. And if you want to invest in them as your mentor, you can make that decision for yourself. And that's a very important part of what we offer. Is a lot of this is relationship based, and you'll know very quickly if you get on with someone or you don't. And I think that is important before you enter a mentoring scheme with that person for 3-6 months. You want to be sure that they're the right person. So yeah, and that's done very efficiently online. It's not about waiting for when they can meet up at a local coffee shop or whatever it is. It's a couple clicks to get a Zoom meeting in with them, and you can see their face. You can, in my opinion, Zoom is as good as meeting someone now. It feels like someone, and if you meet someone on Zoom for the first time, and if you saw them in face-to-face the next day, it probably wouldn't feel that strange. You'd feel like you've already met them. So that's going to be very powerful on the site, and it's nice to be able to offer people that introduction.
Yes, and I understand you're talking to organisations, because I think my understanding, organisations, you may have an HR person, man, female, head of HR, may have 200. I mean, in the SME category, that goes up to 250 employees just as an SME, and then obviously we've got upper levels. but for a HR manager who's looking to provide support for a number of people, a one-stop site, I believe, will offer a better option for them rather than try and source. And often, sometimes it's just someone they know, which you don't necessarily get the right fit. One size does not fit all.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, well, that's what we're trying to do at the moment. We are trying to link in with companies that have that need on a wide scale to mentor their, albeit staff or with recruitment agencies, for example, people they place into roles, who have that need to offer that extra third-party support to those people rather than trying to do it themselves as well as their day job. That's what we do. That's our bread and butter. We've got our mentors ready to go. So it's about forming those links with companies and organizations that make sense and want that third-party mentoring. We've got that resource to make their life easier and to support the people that are under them. So
and the exciting thing, and we were just talking about it this morning, is we're very agile. So we could be talking to a bank or a HR team or a recruitment consultancy. We can actually change the actual model to fit the actual sector, the reason why they want that support, because it's all set up. The functionality is quite straightforward. The side is flexible. So we've got that, and it's actually that's one of the most exciting things for me, is that we can actually turn it to different business models. And the more people, we just want to talk to people and get more people to discuss their needs, and then we can actually tweak and change the business offerings. And so that's the bit which is exciting. We actually don't know sometimes what's going to come out of some of these calls, and I think that's some of the nice things which has happened in the last 4 weeks. Is those different calls have come from different sectors and different types of people.
Yes, I think that would be true now because we're in uncharted water and organisations are having a pivot right from the very top to the bottom, how they're going to go through this. This isn't going to go away, but in a way, my belief is it's actually a blueprint that if something was going to happen anyway, it's a bit like more usage of Zoom. We were always going to go there. And this has been the sort of kick up the pants that's forced a lot of people to go, okay, fine. And I talked to a gentleman last week in America, and he related that he used to do a lot of training, tech training, and the amount of people with the cameras off. And all of a sudden, the majority are now on. People are getting used to this now, and as you say, Joe, we're becoming not that much different from a face-to-face. It's for more efficient. It's very focused. I often hear people say, I do Zoom calls now. I'm so tired afterwards because we've lost the niceties. Graham's got experience like that. If you go into a meeting and the first 10, 12 minutes, it's about everything other than what we're there for. We've lost that now with Zoom because it's sort of bang, start, finish, end. So I can understand that, and obviously it's much more intense. So it's very efficient Zoom, and I think that for a mentor, because people can get exactly what they want out of it. It's a very direct platform. So I can see that. I mean, challenges, you've you started this sort of a year a bit now. What are some of the challenges? Because we all face challenges in business. And what have you sort of found challenging, and sort of an insight where you believe some things you've learned will now go forward?
Yeah, I think with the platform being, purely online and when we were in the design phase, that was to design a platform that takes into account the user experience end-to-end flawlessly was the biggest challenge. To get that designed quickly, effectively, and accurately to actually go live in a matter of months, that was the big challenge last year. And luckily, we worked with a brilliant web design agency in Manchester called Made by Shape, who helped us through that and get that right. But what I suppose, what how we got around that challenge was, when you're designing a website for your business, and if there's going to be a considerable amount of functionality on the website that actually aids the sale of your product, you have to just spend that time, those weeks and months, going through the process and pretending you're a user and thinking, right, what happens if I accidentally click this and this goes wrong, and try and break it and try and, think, what would this person do? What would that person do? And think of every single scenario that you can possibly think of, and make your specification that you pass to a developer of any description, whether they're in-house or not. Make sure that specification is extremely detailed, because it just saves you tweaking things, and that's what makes your development phase a lot longer. And ours was probably a couple, 2-3 months too longer than we wanted it to be, for that reason, because I was very new to this and Graham is very new to this, and we gave our web designer a spec, and then you a few weeks later you'd think, oh, how did I forget about that? Or what happens if someone does this? And we would have saved a lot of time, and the web designers' time, because they probably got sick of us going back with changes all the time. We probably would have saved a lot of time if we just gave it a few more weeks before you submitted that first spec. That was a huge challenge, but if you get a chance to look at the website at wiseupnetworks.com, you can see it's a very straightforward but complex site, and it's very well done, and that's because we put a lot of energy into thinking, what if this, what if that, worst and best case scenarios, but that was the big challenge last year.
The one thing which, and Joe will give you a bit more in depth on this, Kevin, but it's strange now is that the functionality in the site is working really well. So we're adding functionality to it. Some feedback, we're adding Wizzos and gizmos and whatever, but actually fundamentally it's sound. But the biggest one now is because we purposely did not market the brand, because Joe certainly was very meticulous in regards to making sure it worked well, whereas I'm a little bit more risk taking. That's me, I'm afraid, but it's quite good to come from it from different angles. But I think now it's about the word of mouth. It's about spreading the brand. I think that's the most important thing, and Joe's really switching nearly 100% of his time now to that, and I think that's our biggest challenge going forward, isn't it, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. It's that, we've talked to a lot of marketers through doing this, a lot of salesmen, of course, and how to best get your product out there. And, it seems like the advice often goes down the route of it's word of mouth, mate. It's word of mouth. All these marketing techniques that you're considering, these advertising techniques, whatever it is, it's all to get a few people using it and then telling their friends and telling their friends. And we felt that already with, we had someone start a mentoring scheme a couple of weeks ago, and already I'm talking to her friend about, matching her up with a mentor, and that's the ripple effect you can feel off even just even just a small, example of one person. You can already feel the ripple going 2 to 3 people beyond that, and that's the big challenge now, is breaking the back of that word of mouth. Ripple effect, I suppose, and it's about choosing the right marketing and sales techniques to get that ball rolling, and then, because once it's rolling and you get that good reputation and people say, oh, well, you should go to Wiseup, that's when you can focus on growing the business, making it more complex, offering more services. But for now, that's our biggest challenge right now, is absolutely getting the word out about the brand and getting people talking about it.
I mean, you're obviously talking across a number of different industries. Do you feel that in a way you can adapt to all different sectors, or will you need, are you going to need to adapt more to certain than others, or do you believe it will just be a case of adapting slightly all the time?
I think the general principle that people need help and people need guidance applies to any sector. But I think you are right. There's absolutely tweaks that need to be done. Our mentors are pooling, in a few sectors at the moment, and we find that marketers are are on it with this kind of thing, because they're all online. They're looking for interesting platforms, and they're marketing themselves. Completely differently, we also have a few lawyers on there, which is probably not what you'd expect, because it's on LinkedIn you probably wouldn't find that many. But we've got a few lawyers who are really passionate about mentoring younger lawyers or either other senior lawyers, because everyone needs help, and like Graham said, even senior professionals do need that help, because no one knows everything. Everyone has a weak spot in their industry, and then so we do need to tweak it slightly, the tone and who we approach, and perhaps what services are going to be of most interest. Is it one-to-one workshops? Is it an ongoing mentoring scheme? Is it a CV review? Is it a business plan review? Whatever it may be, that'll be different. But the point of a platform is that it's flexible, and it offers everything that you could need, and it's up to the market to decide which people, which services, which sectors are the most popular.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. At least you didn't use the word old; you just used senior.
Yeah.
I've got a few years on you, Graham. Don't worry.
But yeah, I think it's one size doesn't fit all in regards to when you go down to the third level. Once you need the help, you need the assistance. We talked about the age, but there's insights I've seen, because I moved from banking to really outsourcing or procurement sort of skill sets, completely different. So I understand the switch, but mine was switched within company and industry, and then I moved out. So I've done the story myself a little bit with just friends really to guide me. But I think what we're finding is, and we're trying not to lurch left and right and do too much. What we want to do is make sure what we, as the packages we're doing, and we've done an online support package, as Joe says, about recruitment consultancies, because we feel there's a need there, that sort of additional mentor wrapper, due to it, because people will be moving roles, changing careers because of what's happening. And so we feel that's front and centre, and that's the reason why we've approached the government with that proposal as well, and they've taken it away to see whether they can use Wiseup in any way, shape or form. But I think what we're trying to do is make everything solid and keep to our objectives and our principles, which are on the site, which really is to help people to get over those issues which they find, and they want that guidance and that help.
Yes, and I'd certainly agree that, I came out of finally having enough of corporates. I've done a lot more years than Joe, but I finally had enough 4 years ago, and started doing what I'm doing. And yes, it's changed slightly in those nearly 4 years, but it's amazing. Although I've been in technically business twice before, I've worked for a large number of organisations, and yet I can say personally, I sort of came into this sort of 4 years ago thinking, okay, now where do I start? Okay, laptop, number one. Then, okay, accounts package, accountant. You've got some logical steps you can all make. But even I was sort of saying the holes in my knowledge were definite, and I had to go out to people and say, hang on, how do I do this? Because I was faced with, I need a website, but I need it in this structure, because I need it to be focused to connect with the right people. And I've had people contact me, and I look at my site as being fairly explanatory, and yet I've had a couple of people contact me, and it's very much sales focused, mine. And yet twice there've been HR issues and relationships within a business. Now, that's not me, and I point them somewhere else. And I see that's a benefit of sort of something like Wiseup, because if there's somebody having that conversation and a virtual coffee, and they can quite say, I'm not quite sure I'm the right connection, but hang on a sec, you don't need to go anywhere. Let me just see where we can take you to the right person. I think that's a big advantage over a one site, one network that you're offering.
Absolutely, and it's important for us over time to drive up that mentor engagement, where our mentors do know who to refer a mentee to another mentor. We're encouraging our mentors to jump on a call every month, talk to each other, meet each other, know where each other's strengths and weaknesses are. And so it's actually becoming quite a nice community at the moment, which we want to keep going regardless of how large it gets. Because like you said, Kevin, it's about, oh, I can't help you, but I know so-and-so can. And that's where the network idea of wiseupnetworks.com is that's where that comes in. We're all part of different networks, but the same network, if you like, and it's bringing them together to make quite a powerful group of people.
Yes, I think somebody was telling me very much find a niche, and I believe Wiseup is a niche. This is doing something that's not been done before, because every mentor has always been a solo act, and sometimes getting it right, sometimes getting it wrong. But I think in Wiseup you're offering the complete package, and there's a great flexibility within that package. I mean, challenges, we're obviously in that biggest thing. I hate keep mentioning COVID-19 because it seems like a bit of a stuck record, but we can't stop saying it. But obviously you've been working through this period, and we're all starting to realise it's changing dramatically the future. I have various conversations with people I network with about where sales is going, but overall this is changing every business and everybody's world. And do you sort of see anything that's coming out for yourself as you've gone on this journey of a year and a bit?
In terms of how it's going to change with what's going on, luckily at the core we always valued that remote aspect of mentoring. So in that respect, we actually fit in quite well with supporting people through this. Some of the challenges it's thrown up is it did put a stopper on some of the face-to-face stuff we're wanting to do. We did have a few events planned because, like we say, face-to-face is still important to drive that engagement, and especially when it's more of a training piece or a workshop piece where it's it's interactive with a group. We did want to put on things like that, which had to stop, but we adapted to it by actually a funny story is we did try and turn those workshops into webinars, and that was a big challenge for us. It's something that we went well, it did go well and we enjoyed them, but the amount of work that we found involved with getting people to register to a webinar, even if it's it's free of charge, getting people to put time aside for something when there's so many online resources out there, that was a huge challenge. And we managed to do it fairly successfully, but the sheer resource required to get the word out about it was immense. And frankly, with our small team, it was unmanageable. And we unfortunately had to say, put the webinars on the back burner, and something we'll do in a few months' time when we have more resource, a bigger team, because they're brilliant. But yeah, that switch from a face-to-face training onto a webinar, it works in theory, but it's getting that live audience for things is very, very difficult. And it's just a word of warning for anyone who is trying to do webinars or thinking of doing webinars during this time while face-to-face training isn't available. It needs to tie into your digital marketing strategy seamlessly. You need to be posting content about that topic every single day, piggybacking on other organizations who can spread the word for you, and all that is much easier said than done, as we found out. So that was difficult, but in terms of the core of what we're doing, it is it's very in line with what we were going to do regardless. We saw the benefit.
See, I'm an optimist, and I mean I've been through 2000, 2008 now, and this is completely different to those in some way, shape, but not the upheaval at the time. So there was different challenges, and I say I'm an optimist, so I sometimes think that people have a more pessimistic view than what is in reality, and I can see people bouncing back with new ideas, with a little bit of a fear factor in there, but new ideas, new passion, change of roles, change of ways of working, new relationships. And I can see that happening, and it'll take a bit of time. But I think what we want to do is, we've invested in this, we put our time into it. We want to tweak it and make it agile to fit the demand. So where people lead us down, we can change. But fundamentally, it's solid because we want to help people, and that's the main thing. And that's what we said to the Prince's Trust as well. Our main drive is to help people get to the journey which they want to, the route to A to Z. So I think I'm an optimist. I think COVID-19 has created an unprecedented situation. I think people are stronger than even they think, and I think they'll bounce back. And if we can help them, then we'll do so.
I think you're right. I mean, I've been around slightly longer than you, Graham, and I've worked through a number of these, and they seem to happen every 10 years if I look at a timeline. So to banking crisis, we are 10 years on. So here we are again. I mean, I can reflect, and I was talking with somebody the other day, and they said sort of post the banking crisis, we created the entrepreneur. That was the one thing that came out of 2008, 2009. And it's interesting, I talked to a number of entrepreneurs who were very focused on having mentors. They like having a mentor because they're very often one person on their own or partnering up with someone else. And of course, they just don't have everything. Therefore, they very quickly learn, I believe, entrepreneurs very quickly started engaging with a network of mentors. So it will be interesting what post-COVID-19 creates, because I've pulled some stats the other day on SMEs, and it's interesting, in that 10-year gap, I managed to find where it was at 10 years ago and where it's at now. And it's interesting, there has been a shift, definite shift. The number of 9 or less employees has grown quite considerably.
Yeah.
That's definite. So I think there is always change. I think you're right, Graham. You have to be an optimist, because otherwise you wouldn't. And it's interesting you talk about who to engage with to get going. And of course, you need those early engagers, those that are willing to invest, take time, invest their time and see value from it. That's the key to any business, whatever it is, whatever the product, it's those early investors, early engagers. Because as we both know, as we go into the bell curve, we get the pessimists of what's in it for us, which is, you can't change that. That's a reality of that bell curve. So I think you're right, being an optimist, because we all have to move on from this. Hopefully the scientists will come out with a vaccine, and then we'll all move forward. And it's interesting, we're socially distancing 2 meters. I've heard of one country that's brought it down to 1 meter. Yeah. So there's latitude across the globe, as always. But I think also we're becoming, this will make us more global, not less global. I believe, we may bring certain aspects back into each country. I think manufacturing, personal opinion, I think manufacturing will start coming back in country for a lot of products. That's one evidence that we've seen. And I think, but also there was already a move to find the best people, especially in the tech industry, very much focused around finding the best. It's irrelevant where they are, and we don't care whether they're in pajamas, but we just need the best. And of course, I think that fits into yourself. With the Wiseup Network, we have a broad spread of highly skilled professional people, so we can find the right person for you.
Yeah, that's right. It's about breaking those barriers, those constraints on who you know, and it's often that phrase, isn't it? It's not what you know, it's who you know, which isn't necessarily true, but I find it certainly does help when you meet someone And it's often by sheer luck, you bump into them at a seemingly an eerily correct time in what you're dealing with, and you go, you're exactly the person I need to talk to right now. It's about taking that level of chance out of it, I think. And the only way you can do that is, like you say, making this idea of networking a global, it's a global proposition. And there's no reason why, wiseupnetworks.com can't be a global platform with global mentors talking to people across the world. There's no real reason that we can't do that. So I agree with you that this is going to make us all go more global. And that's exactly what we want to happen, because, so what, there's going to be, of course, there's times where you may want to, if you're a UK entrepreneur, you may want to talk to someone in the UK because you might want to talk about HMRC, for example. But, for other issues, your perfect mentor might be in San Diego for all you know, and you'll only know that if that person has made a mentor profile and is reaching out to help you, and that's what we want to facilitate. And that's been the aim from the start, is to not limit this to one place. Of course, in these early days, a lot of the activity is UK based, because it makes sense for us. But in the next couple of years, we are certainly going to look to expand that, because there's no reason why we can't, frankly, from a functional point of view, or a relationship point of view with the
Yeah, I mean, I think it will all talk of a journey in a bit. Business always travels a journey. Never, the steps aren't necessarily all marked out and defined, but we all travel a journey in business. So obviously the one is, what do you believe your success will look like? How have you got measures and ideas and perceptions as to what you will call the successful journey?
Well, Graham said before, it'd be nice to have a private island like Richard Branson, but that's not.
I'll just be happy with a nice retirement home, honestly.
Yes.
that's no. Realistically, that's not. That's not what this is about. I mean, success for us, and from a general point, success for us is it'd be hearing those stories of success from our mentees, hearing that people refer to Wiseup as where they started a very interesting or successful journey. That verbal barometer will always be there. In terms of other measures, success will be the first point. Success will be being the UK mentoring platform, the place to go in the UK if you need some help in career or business. That would be a measure of success. But that, like I say, that extends to Europe and it extends to the rest of the world eventually. But yeah, I think we also, a measure of success for us is that our platform has grown so much that we are able to kind of, to offer a lot of pro bono services as well. I think, obviously we're a business, first and foremost, we're a business and we need to stay afloat. But a long-term aim and note of success will be that we are in that position where we can offer our time for free, and our mentors are able to offer some of their time for free. And we've built that community of people that can do that. Once we have the brand to that level, it would be amazing, because we want to help as many people as we can with this. There is a place for executive coaching and mentoring schemes that are very content heavy, but there's also a place for just having a person to talk to if you're someone who doesn't have this network, but also maybe doesn't have the disposable income to invest in a mentor. Eventually, we want to get to that place as well, and offer all aspects for all people, no matter what their background is.
Well, that's fine. I mean, we're just sort of coming towards time. What I always sort of ask all my guests is to sort of come up with 3 things, usually based around the conversation. So can you sort of come up with, 2, Graham could do 2, you can do 1, Joe, whatever way around. Just sort of 3 things you believe are part of this Wiseup network you've created? Sort of define for the customer, potential client, 3 things.
Well, Graham, you go first.
Well, my food bill's shot up, so that's definitely not one. No, but I think working with my son in a family business is great fun. I think being able to open the doors to other people to enjoy the mentoring I've received ad hoc, that's something which, as Joe just said, is one of my main drivers. I enjoyed that. I enjoy, hopefully that's going to be a good success factor going forward. So that's number 1 for me.
Joe?
Yeah, I think the thing that encompasses it is frankly people. There's one word that brings all of this together, and it's people. And just from starting this, the amount of people I've talked to that are now Wiseup mentors, I've had countless incredible conversations with all these mentors. Everyone you see on the site, most of them I've sat down with and had a chat for an hour at least about what we're doing, who they are, and through that I've met a lot of amazing people, and that's what underpins this whole thing. It's meeting the right people at the right time, and frankly, we've been able to do that through this journey because we've resonated with a lot of people. A father-son starting this kind of business has resonated with a lot of people, and they understand the need, and we found a lot of people willing to throw ideas and help and suggestions where they can, and that's been the real refreshing thing about this, and it is the purpose of Wiseup, is connect you with the right people that you choose as a mentee. You choose them in the first instance, but then together you choose whether you are a good match and can go forward in a productive manner.
And I think the final point is we're ready. The site is fully functioning. It's there. We've got the mentors waiting. So please, people who may be listening to this, contact us. It doesn't matter what the request is or what the desire is. We will be agile, we'll listen, and hopefully we can help.
That's fine. Thank you for those 3 great value comments. Could you please, one of you, tell us how people can get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can go to our platform at wiseupnetworks.com, and you can browse our mentors there. You can view our FAQs on how it all works. But if you want to contact me directly, you can do at joe.wood@wiseupnetworks.com. Just ping me an email, and I'm happy to arrange a call, sit down with you, and listen to what you're looking for from a mentor. And frankly, I've got to know these guys very, very well over the last few months, so I can often pick out a name or 2 that would really suit your particular situation. So yeah, there's 2 ways there. Happy to give that that one-to-one service, but also the platform is there for you to search as you please at wiseupnetworks.com.
Graham and Joe, it's been great to have you on the show. I look forward to see you both in great success.